Welcome back to Methanol Madness, presented by the Ranch Bar and Grill. It's a brand new year as we enter the second half of the race season here at Ruapuna Speedway. AJ, a long time between dances here at Ruapuna, but it's been a pretty good break and we're ready to get back into it.
Yeah, big break. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, so I'm so looking forward to the rest of our season.
There's been no shortage of action around the country happening either, so we're going to cover that and more in tonight's episode. There's a lot to cover, as the last time we went racing was the American invasion, and there's been lots of people travelling in preparation for the New Zealand titles, as well as that holiday period that makes everybody seem to want to go all around the countryside, get some tourist action in, as well as sneak in a few racetracks, which is great to see. So stay tuned and we'll cover all of that. But we're going to rewind the clock back to the American invasion and kick off the show with the KH Fabrication crash of the week. AJ, with this one, Matt Honeywell and Joshua McIntyre coming together on what was then the last lap of the American invasion.
Yeah, it had been a tough old battle, hadn't it? And the traffic was going thick and fast. Just two guys running hard and battling for that little bit of real estate. And it was the old classic right rear to left rear contact, and over she went. But so impressed with Joshua McIntyre, driving well above his years. He's a real talent, this kid. Matt Honeywell, you know, he just got caught up in that one as well. And yeah, both of those guys with big repair bills. Big
rides for the both of them. It's hard to believe that it has already been 6 weeks since the invasion, but thanks to our partners at RJP TV, we've got all the action at our fingertips for the Ruapuna Speedway review of the week. AJ, let's start with Friday, and we cannot ignore the tremendous amount of rain that we saw that morning, which put a bit of a dampener on the spirits, but we were definitely keen to get that meeting in.
Yeah, it really did. I was out here bright and early on the Friday morning, and I could not believe the rain. It was just torrential. And, you know, we were actually really lucky to get it in. The new drainage around the speedway worked very well, with the exception, you know, down the back straight there was just kind of one area that was really badly impacted. But boy, she was a cowboy up track and the action was just furious.
A massive props to our track team, ProTrans and Concut, and everybody else that chipped in to make sure that we could get that meeting in. It was a long day for those guys, but their efforts and their support so that we could go racing did not go unnoticed at all. We'll start with the support classes that we saw racing on Friday night, and the Lightning Sprints have certainly turned up the heat this season, with Clay Pohio and Brett Booth leading the charge. A controversial one there for Clay, who was actually disqualified from that feature race for outside assistance, which then bumped Brett Booth, Sean Shilton and Cooper Forbes up the standings a little bit. Really, really competitive classes we've spoken about a number of times this season, AJ.
Yeah, very competitive. That was such a tough call. You know, there's lots of other things that do get ignored, and you know that one sort of stood out a little bit. It was the old classic case. You know, you got the young guy that's just starting off in the class who is so talented and so fast, and then you've got Boothie flying the flag for the seasoned campaigners. And I don't think Boothie's raced as well as he is going this year. So you know, you've sort of got the new boy coming in, and the old dog, he's defending his bit of territory and he's doing it well.
The wingless sprints contested their best pairs event over the course of Friday night's racing, but it was Kirk Hawkins who landed himself in victory lane for that feature race. Andrew Gregg had a really strong performance, winning 2 heat races, and Mark Morris also winning 1. Both those drivers really been at the pointy end of these races so far this season. These numbers in the wingless sprints starting to grow a little bit. They've kind of fluctuated this season, but it's been cool to have some support from those drivers down south. We've seen Mason Whelan a couple of times as well, which has been good, AJ.
Yeah, working very well for the class, isn't it? And you know, some of the guys went down to Invercargill and Cromwell and that over the last few weeks. And you know, we've just talked about the young and the old, but the wingless sprints right now, it is the domain of the old boys. You know, Kirk Hawkins is taking some beating, and Andrew Gregg, you know, he's been around a long time, and he really does drive a good, honest night's racing. And Mark Morris, what more can you say about the guy? You know, he just gets in there and does it. So yeah, go the old boys.
Of course, the shake-up of Steve Duff Jr. also making a couple of appearances in that class, including this weekend, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But cool to see him get in there and shake it up with those guys as well. Then it was the Midget Canterbury Champs on Friday night as well. Of course, we're kind of staggering the Canterbury Champs as we go through the season, fitting it in where we can after we were unfortunately rained out for that meeting back in November. But AJ, Jeremy Webb was the one to beat that night.
Yeah, when Jeremy is on top, he is absolutely on top. And that was an impressive performance for him. It's a pity it didn't sort of transfer through to his experiences up in the North Island with mechanical issues and so on. But there's no doubting the guy's ability is so damn good on championship nights. Sam McCrenna is one that has really surprised me, and I'm super chuffed about that because, he's sort of been there or thereabouts, but now he's really shooting into prominence and making a very good job of it.
He picked up a heat win that night as well, and then ended up third in the feature, with Jay Chadwick finishing in second. Now onto the sprint cars. Of course, that was the big show of the night as well, with all of the action from all of the heat races and then that feature, which I think that, AJ, that will go down in history at Ruapuna Speedway.
I think it will go down in history, and what it really needed was the drivers of the calibre that we had, and that's right through the whole thing to actually make that one work. And there was an interesting comment from Caleb Montgomery about, this is California, and I've been up there a good number of times, and some of those racetracks sort of out of the peak of the season are nice and heavy, and they've got what people call a little bit of character. And Montgomery, he's the sort of guy that can wring the best out of it. And Jonathan Allard and Joel Myers, those guys, they probably felt they'd just woken up in heaven when they saw it. And it was a little bit tough going, but the spectacle that we got was, that was top shelf.
It was absolutely world-class racing. And as you just mentioned there, Caleb's "This is California" quote after winning the very first heat race really embodied his kind of just get up and get after it attitude. And if anybody was kind of in the stadium, you might have seen that Caleb was actually the one out on track while they were kind of doing the wheel packing and coming up with a plan of how they were going to fix it. And it was Montgomery who ran through the pits and told all of the sprint car drivers, we're going back out, we're wheel packing more, and we're getting this damn show in. And I think that was really cool of him to take that on. And of course, the vested interest with Ray Bourne as car owner helping out with the track. But I mean, he just wanted to go racing. And I think that's the spirit of those California boys. Yeah,
and that's a reputation that Caleb brought to New Zealand, is that he is just a down-to-earth racer. And our commentator on the night, assistant commentator Gary Thomas, he sort of talked a lot about Caleb Montgomery is one of those old school sort of guys in a very young body. They know how to build them, they know how to wreck them, they know how to do everything, but they actually just want to go racing. And I'd like to think that we're going to see him again, but to know that he just so wanted everyone to buy in and we're going racing, let's put on a show. That's a mark of one hell of a racer.
The Team Bourne racing cars were definitely fast in those first heat races as well, with Caleb Bourne then going on to win heat race number 2 with a very hard charging Zach Sokol right behind him as well. And that was actually the first of a couple incidences in that heat race for Brian Murphy there. AJ was not the run at all that he wanted coming into Ruapuna.
No, it was a tough learning curve the whole trip for Brian, and by their own admission, he came out here to learn a lot, and he would have gone back to the States knowing how to go a whole lot faster and so on. He probably did as many races here as he has done previously up in the States, and he's got a hell of a lot of talent too. But he just seemed to be a little bit of a magnet for trouble, and not all of it was of his doing. He just wrong place, wrong time.
Unfortunately, those incidents on the Friday night put him out of contention for Saturday night, obviously putting his health and any concussion symptoms first, which was really important. But to everybody that got to meet him up at the fan zone on Saturday night, thank you for helping make his experience memorable here in New Zealand as well. Heat 3 then all went south for Caleb Bourne after a very successful Heat 2, but a massive wreck for him there, AJ, and there wasn't as much carnage on Friday night as maybe people thought early on when the track was pretty rough. But Caleb's probably took the cake for the biggest one.
Yeah, it did. And it was really unfortunate because this year Caleb has sort of been the Sasquatch of old. Last year I just felt as though he wasn't quite there. But he's really come back onto it this year, and that would have knocked the stuffing out of the Bourne team as such, because a huge effort that they put on both on and off the track. But yeah, Caleb rode that one out. I'd say that would probably be the top of his hits that he's had so far in a pretty darn good season.
Yeah, we were very happy to see Caleb walk away from that one. It was actually on the last lap of that heat race too, which Joel Myers Jr. went on to win, with Tanner Holmes finishing in second and Brennan Crouch in third. Heat 4, Jonathan Allard wasted absolutely no time around the top side to pick up that heat win with a great drive there. And it was only a glimpse of what we would come to expect for the feature. There were several comments made over that feature race, and afterwards when we got the replay up, that it may have been Ruapuna's best feature ever. AJ, a pretty good compliment after not even thinking we were going to go racing on that morning.
Yeah, I've been doing this job an awful long time, and I cannot remember one that just had so much action right through the whole field, right from go to woe. And, it really showed people the ability of the drivers, right through the field. It was just something very special, and it'll be in the highlights package for the rest of my life.
I think also that battle there between Caleb Montgomery and Jonathan Allard, very special. Anyone that got to hear Caleb's interview as well was just absolutely in awe that he was able to race with one of his idols like that, which was really, really cool to hear that he had such a fun experience. So really, really happy for those guys. Tanner Holmes not having the night that he wanted with a DNF in that feature as well. But a really good showing from all of our Americans. I think it was fun to be able to look through the whole field, AJ, and kind of spot them out. There was 6 of them at the end of the night, and yeah, it might have not quite been the results that some of them were looking for, but still really cool to have them out there competing against our field.
Oh, 100%. And the guys that put this together obviously put together a group of guys that were going to get on well, both on and off the track, and they all have their special abilities. Like everyone had heard of Tanner Holmes, because of his social media presence, and it was a little unfortunate that he didn't quite sort of post the results that he would have liked to have, but the fans loved him. Young Brian Murphy, the kid just coming in and giving it a go. Mariah Reid, she was putting in some really good honest laps, and then we all know about Joel and Jonathan Allard and so on, and it was just a bunch of people that got on well, and it was a lifetime experience for them.
So it was clearly a given there that Caleb Montgomery picked up night number 3 of the Invasion, which was also his second feature win of the series so far. So that was really cool for him as well, to be able to come here and still carry that speed that they had down at Central Motor Speedway. Second went to Jonathan Allard, and third place Dylan Forsey, who passed many, many cars to make it all the way up to that podium. A very impressive drive there from Forsey.
That was the best drive of Dylan's career. He had to start right off the back, like from grid 21 or something like that, and he made up 18 spots. That's put him well and truly in the lead of the Hydraulink War of the Wings Hard Charger category, and he had every reason to have been so chuffed about that. Great drive.
So then with Friday put behind us, it was time for the big one. The Saturday night was possibly the most anticipated event of the Ruapuna Speedway calendar. Of course, everybody looks forward to the Gold Cup, but it was nice to bring that excitement forward a little bit and get to host a double meeting here in December, which was great weather as well for that Saturday, AJ, and it was great to see this place get packed out.
Yeah, it was kind of a bit of a flip side thing, wasn't it? The day was nice from the minute we woke up, and big crowd, and I think everyone, if they hadn't have been here the night before, they sort of arrived here with probably not quite as much anticipation as the people who had seen the night before. They knew what sort of show it was going to be, and we were never going to have a racetrack sort of like a carbon copy of the previous night. And so it did give us that contrast. Saturday night was flatter, slicker, and offered a whole bunch of different driving lines.
I think it was Tanner Holmes on Facebook that referred to it as an ice rink, but in a good way, actually. It was something that a lot of the drivers enjoyed, and as you say, completely different to what we saw on Friday night, and produced a very different racing as well. But the support classes on Saturday night came out in full force with the quarter midgets back, and they were led by a dominating performance from Jack Rice. AJ, this kid has come down here from the North Island and is really kicking some butt in this quarter midget class.
Oh, he's serious about it too. And, every week we sort of talk about the kids in the quarter midget class and their talent. And there's one or two that you see through the years that are very special. And Jack Rice, well, he's potentially got a huge career in front of him. He is just a natural.
Second place went to Laken Thompson, another driver who's shown great car speed this season, and third place on the podium that night was Jackson Clark, who we all know is one of Ruapuna's most consistent drivers as well. There was a few cautions in their feature race, so we're glad that everyone came out of those incidents okay. It's never fun to see our youth involved in anything like that, so glad that everybody was okay. And again, there's just big fields of quarter midgets this season, so it's very impressive every time they hit the track. The TQs then put on a showing for the very prestigious Ryan Stone Memorial. It's always a special one to get Jeff out there pacing the field in the 17 AJ in honour of his son.
Yeah, and it's a moment that gets a lot of us because, a lot of us sort of have known Stoney for a long, long time. And we knew Ryan, and it was just cruel what life sort of handed to Ryan. So it's a really special thing. And, the strength of TQ racing around the country is very much based on Ryan's efforts in getting, the engine classification changed and his sacrifices to get that done. And it's always a really special thing. Old Stoney, as in Jeff, he was something. He was something else on that racetrack back in his day, and it's a great moment.
And with the format, of course, that put a lot of our front runners at the back of the grid, there was a lot of moving through the grid. But we want to talk about Georgia Lewis leading the first few laps in this feature until trouble unfortunately struck her there, AJ. But a really good performance from her as just a rookie driver in this class.
Yeah, last season in the quarter midgets, part way through, I sensed that Georgia was, really just starting to get a handle of the quarter midget class. And, when they said they were going into TQs, I sort of thought, oh boy, this could be a bit of a leap of faith, but it is one that has paid off. And she just got out the front and pinned her ears back and she went for it. She drove the race house she wanted to, and good drive by Georgia, and just a shame it didn't work out for her.
Another one that carved some really good laps in that feature race was Logan Scammell as well. He's been really quietly making his laps in the TQ classes. He's been developing over the last couple of seasons and continually improving his form there. But those laps that he led in that feature as well after the yellow with Georgia really showed the talent that Logan's been working on. And really he was able to hold off Lockie Brett for some of that as well. But unfortunately, Lockie really, really fast, and he just found the right moment to get around Logan.
Yeah, he worked it well. He certainly did. And you just sort of sensed that as he was closing that gap, well, it's going to take something special to hold him back. And unfortunately, no one really had that something special but Lockie Brett. He absolutely deserved that one.
Yeah, definitely. And a really good drive there for Logan as well. He still finished second in that race, so massive props to them for all of their efforts, and a great race there by Logan. And third place went to other hard charger Malachi Webb. Very solid third place there for him as well, and a good result. And we want to shout out as well to Rebecca Bugler, who was caught up in a very big crash in that TQ feature as well that saw the red come out. She was caught up in the catch fence, so very happy to see her come away unscathed out of that one, and we look forward to seeing her back on track hopefully very, very soon. The Wingless Sprints hosted the opening round of their Battle of the Sixes series, and they welcomed Steve Duff Jr. back to the class, who can't seem to catch a break in the sprint car so far this season, but really happy for him to be able to jump back into the Wingless Sprint as well and really make the most of that. And as I said earlier, he really does shake those results up, which is really cool to see. He didn't waste any time picking up a heat win early in the night and then the feature win as well. Second place went to Andrew Gregg, who's been having a really consistent season here at Ruapuna, and then third went to Corey Duckmanton. Corey always chipping away, AJ, and nice to see him slowly making his way onto this podium, and I know that he's been wanting that for a while as well, so cool to see him be able to be rewarded with that.
Yeah, he races with his heart on his sleeve, doesn't he? And he just gives it absolutely everything, and he doesn't make it particularly easy for his opponents either. And he's one of those dockyard brawler races that if you want to get past me, you're going to have to earn your spot, pal.
And the Wingless Sprints definitely puts on racing like that as well. So congratulations again to the podium finishers in the first round there of that Battle of the Sixes. The Midgets then hosted another round of the Midget Super Series, which for the last couple of seasons has always finished very, very close on the points, and this year is no different. The numbers are still really positive in the midget class, which is great to see. Both Jay Chadwick and Sam Macrino won heats on Saturday night, and after what feels like a very, very long time between drinks there, it was just a year actually, but it felt like longer with the bad luck that they always strike in that 12 car, it seems to be. But Liam finally able to reward himself and car owners and the crew with a win on Saturday night, AJ.
Yeah, they're big occasion races. And Selwyn Everett, Selwyn is smart and, he's got a good driver in Liam, and they chose a really good time just to sort of forget all their problems and get into it. So it was a good win for him. It was a good, solid performance.
Jay Chadwick and Sam McCrenna seem to be magnets to each other in the results so far in these events as well, with second place going to Jay Chadwick once again and third place to Sam McCrenna. And last but not least, with the sprint cars for their final night of the 4 nights of the American Invasion hosted between Central Motor Speedway and Ruapuna Speedway. It was a very, very different track to night 1 as we just spoke about, but Montgomery's still incredibly fast. Heat win, Rangi was really trying to chase him down there, but Caleb coming out on top for that first heat.
Yeah, kind of Rangi through everything at that, including the kitchen sink. But Montgomery was just well and truly in control. He managed to dictate the terms, and he put that car absolutely right on spot every race. So big ups to the Bourne team for their involvement in it, and they will have also learned a lot from Caleb Montgomery, no doubt about that.
Definitely. Jonathan Allard set a flying pace in Heat 2 as well, but the rest of the race behind him was actually really full of battles as well, which was a lot of fun to watch. I was really impressed with Zach Sokol all weekend, AJ. I think that even coming into the title, they've based themselves out of Cromwell, and they've really taken the South Island sprint car racing very seriously, and it seems to be paying off for Zach. Yeah,
they're not here on holiday, that's for sure. And he's a very popular driver and just a young guy that sort of has earned or learned a lot from a couple of excursions up into the USA where he's been racing up there, and his dad Ozzy, he's pretty cunning, and they basically said the South Island is where it's at right now. They will honour some commitments up in the North Island, but we'll get to see Zachary Sokol a few more times this year,
which is great for all of you guys who have been following along with his journey as well. Started up in Auckland, of course, that's where they're from, but being able to see him race week in and week out, really seeing his improvements has been great as well. Heat 3 was a really good showing from Brenham Crouch and Tanner Holmes, who held a steady second there until a late restart where Jonathan Allard took the spot away from him. And it was a very bold move at the start of heat number 4 that saw Joel Myers Jr. take the lead and go on to win that one. There's a great battle going on behind him as well with Jamie Duff and Connor Rangi. Those two, always fun to watch on the racetrack, AJ.
Yeah, great mates, but there's a real rivalry on the racetrack, and it's almost as if they know what each other's going to do, but it's for real. Those two, they just give it everything, and half the Ruapuna crowd cheer for one, half cheer for the other, but I think right in the middle is this absolute respect that the guys have for each other.
Definitely. Now on to the pole shuffle. Both were very good over the 2 nights as well, but some of the moves being made in the later stages of this pole shuffle were very, very impressive. We don't get to see a pole shuffle very often here, AJ. Of course, the War of the Wings format normally goes for the dash, but really interesting to get to see the tactics that were used and the racecraft that we had on display for those ones.
Yeah, and it's actually one of those things where it's a little bit of an advantage to qualify. Let's say if there's 8 cars in the pole shuffle, to be the 8th guy, because you get the heat into the engine, you get the heat into the tyres. Probably more importantly, what people should look at when the pole shuffle, when the guys are pushed off, they almost all give the car a quick blip, get some heat into those tyres. But if you start walking your way through the progression stakes and start 8th, and then you knock off 7th, and then you're 6th, boy, you're going to take some beating because everything's starting to go your way. But there was nothing left on the plate from any of those guys. They gave it everything. Perhaps a couple of slightly questionable manoeuvres, but hey, great entertainment. And pole shuffles, they're either really good or they suck. And that one was really good.
Totally agree. The feature race was then cut a few laps short, unfortunately, due to a couple of late race incidents, one of which included the teammates Jacob McIntyre and Tanner Holmes. We were really happy to see them both walk away from that. Jacob was a little banged up after that one, but nothing that he can't handle, and he was back in the race car as soon as he could over that Christmas period in Cromwell as well. But a really disappointing end to all of the effort and all of the time that those guys had spent with Tanner and getting ready for the invasion as well. So really disappointing to see their weekend have to end like that. But the feature results were Caleb Montgomery first, Joel Myers Jr. in second, and Matthew Levisage in third. A great drive by Joel there. AJ, obviously not the results he wanted on Friday night with a DNF in that feature, so really probably had a bee in his bonnet and was ready to get after it again, and a really good performance from Matthew Levisage too.
Yeah, Joel Myers is just the epitome of determination, isn't he? You know, once he gets a little bit cranky about things, boy, you want to stand back and watch, because you're going to get a whale of a show. But I think Matthew Levisage perhaps was our most consistent performer of the local drivers over the weekend. And whilst he didn't make his way through the traffic quite like Dylan Forsey did the night before, there was a lot of very positive things to see in Matthew Levisage's sort of performance in that feature race. And he's another big race guy, and he's got lots of experience that he can draw on, so they'll be pretty chuffed about that.
A great result there to end off the American invasion. And on that note, just another really massive thank you to everybody that was involved in that weekend, to K&T Drainage, as well as Shearing's Earth Moving for their sponsorship of the events, Hydraulink War of the Wings, of course, Jason Scott and Peter Murphy for making it all possible from the start, and of course all of the families and drivers, as well as co-commentator Gary Thomas coming as well. So it really was a huge fanfare and a huge deal for these guys to come to the South Island, and we were very, very happy to be a part of it. And we cannot wait for 2026, which we hope is bigger and better. Since then, we've had our drivers making appearances at tracks all over the country, so we're going to do our best to cover some of the highlights from all of the race meetings that we've had going on. There was a couple of TQs that headed up to the New Auckland Speedway to get some laps ahead of their New Zealand title. That was over the International Series held up there, where they had Canon McIntosh racing in the midget as well. Unfortunately, more rainouts than anything, but Lockie Brett made the most, with a stop in Wellington actually on his way up there, and had some really good results at Wellington Speedway, and then a third place finish at Auckland Speedway as well. Jeremy Webb took both the TQ and the midget up and had several strong podium finishes in the TQ, and Malachi Webb making some great learnings to come away with. A big month for the TQs, AJ, and those guys really committed to getting those laps in to make sure they're ready for this title.
Yeah, there's been another event at Rotorua and one at Huntley and things like that, and it's starting to build very nicely. And, you know, I can't help but reflect on what was happening last year, going right up to the New Zealand Championship. Not a whole lot of people gave Jeremy Webb much of a chance, because he hadn't really been shining, but those guys, you just keep on sensing that they've got something special up their sleeve, and the build-up is very much around just trying little things. The New Auckland Speedway is kind of like, neutral territory, because not a whole lot of laps have been cut out there by the TQ class. And I'd still back J-Dub to do pretty well in these nationals, but Malachi Webb and Lockie Brett, they're going to surprise a whole lot of people.
I think everybody learnt last year you can never count out Jeremy Webb. A few of our V6 wingless sprints drivers headed down south over the Christmas period as well. Corey Duckmanton coming away with a few heat wins to his name, with Kirk Hawkins ending up third in a feature at Central Motor Speedway as well. Andrew Gregg also made the trip down, so great to see those guys getting some kilometres up as they travelled around the deep south there. There was not a lot of action over the break for the lightning sprints, however, until this past weekend, where a handful of them headed down to Beachlands Speedway in Dunedin. It was Brett Booth who took home a heat win, and of course Jaden Fraser from Invercargill picking up a heat win and a feature. Jaden does a lot of kilometres to get to these races. I'm sure Dunedin was nice to be a little bit closer to home for him, but really, really solid performance as always.
Yeah, he's he is like consistently the standout guy in that class. And Dunedin's a really good racetrack, and it keeps its moisture and so on. And it'd be something nice, not so much new for them down there, because the modified sprints made a good number of appearances, but it's a class that really can impress, and they would have done a good job down there.
Great to see those guys and girls with Connie Mackay, Luke Cook and Clay Pohio also going down to attend that as well. So great to see the support there for their series that they were running, as well as getting to experience a track that they don't get to race on a whole lot over the course of one season. Then, of course, we got into title time as well. The sprint car title was hosted at Central Motor Speedway down in Cromwell on the 9th and 10th of January, which saw strong performances from a lot of our Christchurch drivers as well. We had almost our whole field entered, with 13 going down from Christchurch here. Unfortunately, Dylan Forsey coming out with news just days before the event that due to some ongoing health issues and wanting to put himself first under doctor's orders, making sure that he was good to go, he had to pull out, AJ. And after all of the work that Dylan's put into his sprint car career, really devastating for those guys.
Yeah, it would have been heartbreaking for not only for Dylan, but for the whole team, because they've been gearing themselves up for this basically from when Cromwell was announced as the hosts for the championship, and he would have had a pretty good shot at it too. But yeah, you got to put your health first, and I would say they'll come back a lot more determined to make up some lost ground.
Christchurch Club members Joel Myers Jr. now 2 NZ and Caleb Montgomery now 3 NZ as well. So both of those numbers going back to America. But of course we get to see Joel race a whole lot as well, and we're hoping that Caleb will get to come back and show off the 3 NZ as well. Of course, as I said, we had 13 club members go down there. Some of the really strong performances that stood out to me there, AJ, was Connor Rangi as well. Unfortunately, some bad luck on Friday night really put him down on the points, which those points are everything, unfortunately. But, really happy to see those guys carry a lot of speed through that speedway, as well as Jamie Duff, who unfortunately couldn't really seem to catch a break all weekend. But, these guys are really, really good, and, again, done a lot of laps at Cromwell too.
Yeah, and the way the format is you have one bad heat and that's bad, but if you have a couple, boy, she's a big ask. And if you start further back from, I believe, about the 4th row at a Nationals, at a track like Cromwell, you're pushing it uphill with a stick, you really are. And, the fact that both of those two guys came up with a good, solid placing tells you a lot about it. Cromwell is a tough racetrack. It's like nothing else, and man, it is hard on man and machine.
It was great to see them get those 2 meetings, and a lot of the build up this season around sprint car racing in particular has been surrounding that sprint car title as well, which Daniel Thomas took home his 2nd championship. A lot of you may have been here at Ruapuna when he picked up his first back in 2023, so really cool to see Daniel, and a massive congratulations to him for picking up that win there as well. We've also had the New Zealand midget title just a couple of weekends ago as well, where we had Jeremy Webb, Ben Morgan, Jay Chadwick and Christchurch regular Nathan Wilkie as well compete, as well as club member Michael Pickens, who now we're hoping we'll get to see come south very, very shortly, AJ. But really strong showings from a lot of our guys there as well, with Ben Morgan in particular. Yeah,
I think that one of the things that has really helped the Christchurch guys is the fact that with Western Springs not currently operating, it's probably, I'm not going to say brought the standard of the Auckland guys down, but the standard of our guys has gone up as equipment's become available and so on. And every one of those drivers, they had their moments. Unfortunately, the Wilkies had some mechanical issues, and then, it just didn't quite work out for them in the B main. But Ben Morgan was one name that was on a lot of North Island lips after that one. And we're not surprised down here because, it's been a bit of a slow start to the season. But boy, this kid, he is just so good in that company up there. So, Jay Chadwick, he was always going to be a threat up there. Things just had to go his way. And, the Nationals at Bay Park for the midget cars, again, it's a bit like sprint cars at Cromwell. They don't race on a track that big and that fast that often. So, they certainly flew the flag well.
And in all 83 years of the Midget Championship was the first time it had ever been held at Bay Park as well. So a massive effort to everybody that went up from the South Island, of course. Thank you for representing our clubs down here, with pride. And as we just said then, Ben Morgan, really strong heat race winners there, and even after tipping it up, drove all the way back to, I think it was second or third. And I mean, it was just a really great result for them as well. They also set quick time at the 50 lapper in Auckland, which is a very prestigious race. So, it was really good to see Ben be able to have some good results. As AJ kind of alluded to, it's not been the season we're used to Ben having down here, but it was great to see him go up there and be rewarded with that. As we said, Wilkie and Webb had some bad luck there as well. And then it was Michael Pickens, who was our highest club member, finishing in the feature there with 6th place. He started off the front row as well, so really cool to see that. And then we had an 8th, 12th and 13th were our results there in that feature. But yeah, really, really wrapped for being 8th place in the feature as well.
Yeah, that's a terrific result. And, all of those guys just emerged with a whole lot of credit. And yeah, we'll take Michael Pickens any day as a good old Christchurch boy.
A massive congratulations to Aaron Hodgson as well for picking up his first New Zealand title. 2nd place there, so now 2 NZ Brad Mosen and now 3 NZ Ben Morrison. So we're hoping that we get to see those guys come south at some point this season, and we're really looking forward. We've got a couple of really big midget shows, especially towards the end of the season. So really looking forward to that as well. But that wraps up that portion of our show tonight. But unfortunately, due to the forecast and the amount of rain that has already hit the track this week, tomorrow night's event at Ruapuna Speedway has been postponed to February 7th. The New Zealand TQ title, scheduled to start today in Auckland, where 5 of our club members were set to compete, has also been postponed due to the rain. Since there is a lack of open wheel speedway this weekend, we thought it might be fun to do a giveaway thanks to the team at Supercarts. To be in the draw to win one of 2 vouchers, just comment below which Ruapuna Speedway event you are most looking forward to for the rest of the season. So a massive thank you to the Ranch Bar and Grill, the presenting sponsors of this show. We hope that some of you popped into Te Anau to give them a visit over the busy holiday period while there was a lot of racing going down that way as well. It's great to be back here in the studio of Methanol Madness, but until next time, keep your foot up it.